Good evening again. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Sami Malaki. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Nairobi Madaraka. It's an interesting evening. We shall start. This is the 38th meeting of the Rotary 2020-2021. We shall start off with the Rotary Grace, which will be led by Rotarian Ndirangu Ngunjiri.
Sorry, Mr. President. I think you have stated that I cannot unmute myself. No, good evening, members. Let's start together. We go together the Rotary Grace. Oh God, giver of all good, we thank Thee for our daily food. May the Rotary friends and Rotary ways help us to serve Thee all our days. Amen.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Ndirangu. Next is a loyal toast, and this will be done by the president. So if you have a glass, please charge it. If not, place your right hand over your heart. To His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, to the President.
To the President.
Next, we'll have the four-way test, and this will be by Rotarian George Mwendwa. George?
Hello, everyone. Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
We can hear you.
So great. So for the, let's say the four-way test, for the things that we say or do, is it fair to all, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much, Rotarian George. Next, we shall have the announcements, and the first announcement will come from the Secretary of the Club, Secretary Janet. Assistant Secretary Janet, please, the floor is yours.
Good evening, guys. We shall be having our club assembly on May 10th. Kindly purpose to attend.
Thank you very, very much for that. The purpose of the club assembly that we'll be having will be for the incoming board, led by P.E. Wilson, Kamau, to give us the agenda for the year, their plan, and their budget. So members of the club, I highly encourage that you attend, because whatever is discussed during the next club assembly will affect the next Rotary year. That's from July 2021 to June 2022. The next announcement is from our Vice President. Okay, she seems to be on the road, so I'll say it on her behalf. For next year's DCA will be held at the South Coast, Diani. And there were concerns by members that having to foot the entire costs of the conference is a bit pricey with a short notice. So we came up with a suggestion that we will pay in installments. And this is up to December. So we'll start taking installments in June, July, and complete paying in December, so that we have a large number. At the moment, only 2 members have registered for the 2022 DCA, and would like to go with a large delegation next year. Thank you for that. The other is on induction. We'll be inducting new members during the month of May. We have about 5 members and 2 more potential members So sponsors, I highly encourage that you have the talk with your inductees, your potential members of the club. If you need any support from the club, you can reach out to Rotarian Jokindu and I if you have any questions. Okay, so that's it. We are done with the official club, stuff, and we shall move over to the introduction of the guest speakers rather. Rotarian Corinne Mbati is going to introduce the guest speakers. Corinne.
Thanks, President Malaki. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce our guest speakers, Brian and Alistair. I hope I say it right. Close the door. Brian and sorry guys. So Brian and Alistair work for a company, Tulix App, which is a convenient and direct way to make payments and manage how remittances are utilized. Tulix App enables individuals and organizations to allocate funds to their beneficiaries via mobile application and USSD application. Brian Muriru, the first co-founder of Tulix App, has worked in startups in East Africa and the US for over 8 years, leading teams in marketing, technical and customer service roles. Alistair Gold, the second co-founder of Tulix App, has a 15-year background in investment banking in Kenya. And this time he has developed his knowledge, and through this he's developed his knowledge of regulated financial markets, as well as sales, leadership, and operational experience. And we look forward to hearing what you have to share with us. Thank you, Karibu.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Corinne. And Sami, thank you. And to all the Rotary Club of Madaraka for hosting us today. I can say it's a pleasure to just be speaking about our journey and what we've learned. For that, I think I'll just let Alistair say a good, kind hello before we begin. I'm sure the introduction served as a good way to start. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for hosting us this evening. We are in the very early stages of what seems to be a very exciting journey, and the opportunity to share what we've learned so far. It's been a couple of months with an audience such as yourselves is exciting to us. So hopefully in telling you both about the product as well as ourselves and what we've learned, maybe we will hopefully inspire some. I don't know how many among the participants are currently entrepreneurs. It would be interesting to know on the chat if anyone here is not employed, but rather just running business on their own. We'd just like to have an idea of the mix. And then we'll just share what our thoughts, our experience, and hopefully it will be a very interactive session. Feel free to put questions in the chat as we go along, or to just raise a hand at any point, and we can stop where we are. And I think we should have around about 45 minutes, and given that it's dinner time for most, hopefully this will make for good conversation while having your dinner. So I'll hand back over to Brian and we shall get started.
Thank you very much, Ali. So ladies and gentlemen, as you've heard, we are Tulix App, and we are building a product that is actually an app for people who are living abroad right now to manage the money they're sending home. And we also believe that this is a product that even local use cases can adapt, where if you're supporting people back home, if you're running a project somewhere where you're not physically present, you could have this opportunity to manage how the money you send and even track what is being spent and how it is being spent. So basically, this whole entrepreneurship journey it's a very interesting and exciting journey, because for us, for example, we met through the Antler program. So believe it or not, Alistair and myself had not met in person before September 2020. And funny enough, we had met in different circles, but we didn't know we had actually met. But it was interesting that because the Antler program, I'll just leave a link on the chat. Antler.co. Antler.co is a global startup generator where they bring together passionate founders, people who are very, very interested in solving a problem that is personal to them, and people who can work together, and they take you through a 3 to 4 month process where they teach you some of the learnings and key attributes that come with entrepreneurship. And one of the ones that we discovered early on that myself and Alistair had in common was we were actually very obsessed with the problem we're trying to solve right now. And I believe this is one of the strongest of really key differentiators when it comes to people starting a business. So you have to really want to be involved in that problem and to create a solution for it. And I'll give you a typical example. The process of managing remittances has been very personal to me and Alistair. So like last year, for example, when COVID hit, I'm sure most of you could notice what happened around us. A lot of families were really denied their regular sources of income. Some were rendered jobless, and we had to rely on maybe our friends and family who were still abroad, who had stimulus checks, who had other means of revenue that they could share with us. But one strong component of that was we had to manage it better. And so an uncle of mine actually sent me money to pay on behalf of 4 other families. And it was very interesting to me because it was during the lockdowns, during the curfews, but I still had to go across 4 counties and had to do shopping for 4 families and still send SMSs, still send WhatsApp notifications. You can imagine the burden that can take on an individual. But when we sat down and I asked Alistair if he had the same problem, he explained that had been his story of his life because he's also the last born in his family and he's been tasked with some of the similar problems. And so when we began our entrepreneurship journey, we had to find a problem that was really worth solving for us, and we had to really fall in love with the problem and not the solution. That's the tricky bit. And I mean, the best thing about it is that I actually asked him if he knew anything about what you were trying to do, because it's a fintech problem. He's in a financial background. I come from a marketing background and an engineering background, but I had to know something about money in order to pursue this problem. And one of the first things I did was I asked him. And a key aspect of entrepreneurship is always ask. Don't try and solve a problem if you're not fully equipped for it. Don't try and figure out a challenge that maybe is beyond your scope. There could be people around you that you can work with. And I don't know, Ali, would you like to add to that and say something on top of that?
Yeah, sure. No, I echo Brian's sentiment. And just to just circle back to how we met at the program. I mean, as the title of the talk says, from employment to entrepreneurship. When COVID struck, we all know that a lot of businesses opted to shut down or downscale. So as it turns out, the one that I was working for, an investment bank here, opted to pull out of Kenya. And it was just timely that the Antler program began, because I'd already been looking into entrepreneurship and just taking a different path. After you've done something for that long, 15 years, it can become very repetitive and very predictable. And I just felt that this was maybe a good opportunity to then try something new. And entrepreneurship and getting into a startup, a tech startup of all things, was an exciting idea in my mind. So finding Brian and realizing that we had similar interests as far as some of the challenges that people faced around the movement of money around the world was a pretty interesting and a big enough problem that we were both willing to get involved with. And that's how we circled down to remittances. But as Brian has indicated, it starts by asking questions. A lot of times people get into business simply wanting to make money, and businesses are supposed to make money. That is not a bad thing, but there has to be value that you are providing to people. There has to be a problem that you are trying to solve for the intended customers of your business. And for us, that problem was big enough, and we were extremely interested in it. And we essentially went down a rabbit hole of questions and more questions. And as we asked more and more people, in fact, during the program, we were, I think, 33 or 34 people in that program, a lot of them from different parts of the world, different parts of Africa. And especially for the Africans, it was a problem which they could all resonate with. And they said, yes, even in their countries, across West Africa, Southern Africa, there are people who have families or members of their families abroad who are sending money home for specific things. But a lot of the times the people come back and find that, well, nothing was done, or we've all had different versions of this story where somebody has thought that they were building a house for the 5 or 10 years that they were abroad, only to come back and find nothing. So we felt that this was a good starting point, and it was something big enough to approach. And on to Brian's second point, as far as just asking questions, one thing that the ANTLA program taught us was just keep asking questions, keep on asking questions, so that you are sure that what you're getting into, you are actually solving the right problem. And to that point, I think there is a quote by Henry Ford where he says that if he had asked people what they wanted, they would have said that they wanted faster horses. This was in relation to when Henry Ford developed the automobile. So the thing is, customers are able to describe a problem they're having. In that era, it was that moving around was very difficult and slow. And as such, they wanted to move around faster. But the entrepreneur in Henry Ford then went on to develop cars that people now use to this day. And that's the thing about asking questions and being able to now innovate and figure out, well, what is it that we can do differently? Because it's not to say that money isn't moving around the world and that people aren't getting money to their families back home. But as entrepreneurs, I think one of the things that we saw very clearly very early on is how can it be done better? How can it be done more effectively? And that's essentially what we're trying to address with the app that we are building. Brian?
Awesome. Thanks, Ali. I mean, there's something you alluded to there during the program, and I remember the difference between entrepreneurship and employment is the amount of work you have to do. So work takes many forms, and I think this is the most misunderstood concept about entrepreneurship, because sitting down to ask people questions is part of the work. Talking to people who you might think need this problem solved is part of the work. And therefore, you find that entrepreneurship calls for a lot more work ethic and discipline than employment would ever do. And one of the biggest changes in terms of switching from employment to entrepreneurship was realizing also that the business is you. You are the business and the business is you. So you end up taking up different roles. You're the customer service, you're the marketing team, you're the finance guy, you're the legal guy, compliance, taxman. Everything that you do in that business revolves around you, compared to entrepreneurship, compared to employment, sorry, where you'd find that you'd sit in an office, but you know everyone's role and they're clearly cut and you don't even interfere. But it's the marketing guy's job to say, that is marketing. So ideally, that's exactly one of the biggest changes that we have learned. And it's a lot of work, and we believe that it's important work, but you, like I said, you have to really love the problem. But even with all this work, another thing we have realized that has also helped even learn and how to build our relationship better as co-founders is we have to rest. So entrepreneurship does not mean work Sunday to Sunday. Don't look at your family, don't talk to them, don't call your friends anymore, don't find other things to do during your free time. No, actually entrepreneurship means learn how to work better and also plan your time better so you can rest and start a new week afresh. And that's a really big change compared to employment, where you're always working. And the other, and thank you.
No, I mean, I totally echo. And I mean, I can just say working in investment banking was extremely busy. And I personally thought that, well, now let's go start a business and relax a little bit as I figure out what next. But once we took the plunge into starting this business, you realize that, especially if you love it so much and you really enjoy it, you can easily find yourself putting in a lot more hours than you even were putting in when you were behind a desk in an office. And was still even now when people are working remotely or working from home, where the difference between office space and home space has essentially been blurred. You can find yourself putting in a lot of hours, and it's extremely important for you, where Brian has said exactly that, where you as the founders are the business at this stage, and you are not as dispensable, if I may put it that way, as in a large company where if somebody leaves, they're replaced very quickly. Here, the three of us, because Brian, myself, and Daniel, who couldn't make it today, realized that, wow, with all the hours we're putting in, we also needed time to rest. And that's one thing that I value very much. And we've been able to find a very healthy balance where we get a lot done, but somehow we also respect each other's time for relaxing, for spending time with family and friends, in order for you to recharge, because taking care of your mind and body is extremely important for you to be effective. I think even some of the most successful people in large companies that we all know, such as Amazon and Microsoft and Tesla, like Elon Musk, who's very well known today, they all say that they actually sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. When you're starting something, you might find that, no, I must work all night, I must push and just sleep for 3 or 4 hours. But the moment you start to realize that that has an impact, and very negative impact on yourself, on your company, and on your co-founders, you have to roll it back and make sure that you're taking very good care of yourself so that you can then take care of your company and your co-founders.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually very true. And just building on to that now, that rest also allows you to make time for your brain to recharge, and also gives you a really, really different perspective on a problem, especially when you sit on a problem for 2 to 3 days, but it's still in your mind, but you're not actively pursuing it. You're able to use that break or that moment to now analyze another perspective that you could have analyzed that problem from. And I had talked about sometimes it's really, really good to ask about anything you're not sure of. And I think one of the other things that entrepreneurship can borrow or can learn from employment is that it's actually very, very good to leverage your network. Like you've seen how sales grows. I mean, sales, we call it sales, the relationship building game. And one thing that entrepreneurship has changed, especially for me and for Alistair, I think, is that we are able to now work with people who are from different fields but are still in our network, people who we probably in employment would have never been able to give a phone call and explain what problem we're trying to solve. And it brings us that opportunity to just hear the perspectives from different industries, different professionals. I can tell you, like in the last 6 months, I have talked to people in government, people in private sector, people across the world. And you have to do that because unless you leverage that network, it's very, very hard to solve that problem by yourself. Yes, you might be co-founders, but around us, there are people who might have a better understanding of what we're trying to do or where we're trying to go. And having that ability to ask them or reach out to them is very useful for us. And it also gives you the added advantage of having different perspectives. I can reference like a moment when I thought I understood a problem in a particular way, but when we spoke to someone from Ali's network who had worked in compliance and in a lot of legal markets and regulated markets, one of the ideas I had turned out to be exactly completely wrong. And if we hadn't reached out to that person, I mean, we probably would be having a very different conversation now with one of us missing in the room, but luckily that's not how things went. So yeah, we really appreciate that ability to use our current opportunities to just talk to people we have met along the way, along our lives, along the journey our life has taken. And it's really, really useful. And then, well, yeah, I don't know, Ali, anything else over there?
Yeah. No. Network. When out in the professional world, people say your network is your net worth. And I've gotten to see it firsthand here. Where there have been people from our past professions and people around us who have come out and raised their hands to help. And people just ask, what is this you're working on? It sounds interesting. Is there anything I can do for you in my capacity as this or that? And I'm even seeing a couple of people in the audience here. I'm pretty happy to see a couple of friends who have literally just done things for us to help our cause, just believing in what we're doing. And it's all about the people that you have around you at any given time, and knowing that, well, it's life is a circle. You must be good to people all the time, to be honest, because even if you don't see it at some point in the future, as things will align, you may require their assistance in some way or form. So I'm a very firm believer that networks are everything, and there's no limit to who you should ask for help. I think one thing that I've seen about people, especially in the African context, when starting businesses, and more so even in Kenyan context, everyone is very secretive about what they're doing, and people don't want to say, because they feel that, well, this next person, if I tell them, they're going to take my idea and run with it. And yet that's quite different in the West, where people actually build new businesses in the open and grow an audience and tell people exactly what they're doing. And from that audience, more help comes in. So I think that's one thing that we need to embrace a bit better here. The fact that it's important to speak freely to people around you about what you're building, what you're doing, because you just never know. It may be a friend or a friend of a friend, or even a stranger who may be told about your business and they could change everything for you. So networks have been extremely important for where we've gotten this far, and we still feel that we want to involve as many people over time and tell as many people the story. So as to encourage others, of course, first of all, to start new things. Honestly, if you told me 15 years ago that this is where I would be today, starting a fintech business, I would have said, no, not possible. But through having the right people around you that lead you to these things. In fact, even how I got into Antler was from a friend of mine from university, who then came and suggested the program. It's very important to interact as much as possible with people around you professionally, and just explain to them what you're doing at any given time, what challenges you're facing, what you're struggling with, and see, just explore ideas around how to solve these problems. And before you know it, you might be starting something that you're excited about.
Exactly, Ali. I mean, I can echo that sentiment that we are your, it's, what do they usually say? You are your brother's keeper, right? So if you have information that's helpful to anyone, just feel free to share it. Sometimes that information is probably worth nothing to you, but could be worth the next unicorn in Africa or the next big problem that's solved. And you can, by sharing information, we learn how to trade with each other, and we learn how to build better relationships. But moving on from the network, I've just remembered one other thing that is key to entrepreneurship that is not very common in employment. You have to always work really, really fast. I mean, once you land on a challenge, or once you're trying to figure out a certain aspect about your business, working fast, especially when you're very small with very limited resources, goes a much longer way than waiting for that problem to solve itself at the end of the day. I don't know how many of you are employed currently or have been in an employment kind of situation, but I remember from my previous days that there are days when a problem would actually exist within the business and it was an economically harmful problem. But because the right person wasn't really keen to solve it as fast, could lead to multiple problems, a cascading and compounding effect that if was plugged in or was solved really fast would really not grow to become such a problem. So entrepreneurship is teaching us quite well that if you're able to do something right now, just get on with it. Do it now, get it out of the way, make sure it's really solved as fast as possible. And of course, you can't do this without information. So I will also say that you have to go back to adapting a continuous learning process. I mean, in the last month or so, I have already read 3 books that I would not have touched in the last year. It's such an interesting challenge because you find that that knowledge consumption or that new sources of information is so vital to getting different perspectives about the business and about the problem, and even how you address and communicate the problem, that even if you try to avoid doing it, you find that there are challenges that no network or no Google search will give you the answer to if you haven't gone through a book and tried to spend some time consuming that information, that knowledge that's already prepared for you there. And yeah, I mean, that now builds the problem, what we call the solution, which you call ideating, where if you have one idea right now, it might not be the best format or in its best form, but you have to keep building on it, you know, gradually add your the learning you've gotten, the building you've understood, keep adding to that process, because in employment, things take long to change. That's one thing we can all agree on. In some businesses, especially, it's a whole due diligence process. It has to go 3 emails up the chain, then someone has to send it back down for review. But with entrepreneurship, that's not the case. If you're the guys on the team who need to handle that problem, you have to handle it at that point. And the easiest way to solve a problem is through ideation. So even when we're building Tulix, the app, the product will not be in its complete and perfect form when we release it, right? It will require us to completely rethink the way we approached it the first time, then do that for the second, the third, and the fourth, continuously iterating on what we know. I don't know if you agree with me, Ali, on that one.
Fully. And in fact, I can tie that with something that you alluded to earlier, is in terms of just getting different perspectives. The thing is that you, as much as you're also continuously learning about things to develop your business, to develop your company, to develop your solution, you're also constantly trying to get other people's views to help you essentially just create a better thing. If at any point people had stopped innovating, we wouldn't be where we are today as the world. If we had stopped at the old telephone that we all know, then we wouldn't have these cell phones. The internet would probably be a different thing. Cars would not be what they are. Nothing would be what it is. Everything is where it is today because there are people behind the scenes who continuously just want to make things better, faster, smoother, make it an easier experience. And given that we are now a small business of 3, but hoping to be a big thing, even with the first idea that we had, in fact, what we have as of now, a couple of months in, is not what we started with. It's not the very first idea that we latched onto. It's another iteration of the first idea that we had, and we constantly want to keep on doing that, so that you're delivering value to your users, you're delivering value for your company, and you're constantly thinking of ways to make your product, make your business a better thing. And I think that's something that we must all do anyway, whether it's in a business, whether it's as an individual, whether it's as a big corporate. I think ideation should never stop and innovation should never stop, even if, yes, as an employee of a big company, and I had this experience firsthand, having worked for a couple of large companies, that process of getting ideas through to the big decision maker is extremely slow, and it can actually stifle innovation because it needs so many signatures, so many approvals. And that's, I think, one of the, if I may say so, one of the best things about starting your own venture is the fact that it's up to you guys, it's up to your team, and you make the decisions, and you make the decisions very quickly, and you keep moving. So I think in this goes even beyond entrepreneurship. People must constantly be just thinking of, how can we do this better? How can we do this differently? How can I, even as an individual, try and get a little bit better than I was today, and improve tomorrow? But that's where we are with our journey so far. It's pretty exciting, and it also goes to the fact that when you're building something new, you must always remember who you're doing it for. As it's said very often, customer is king, and that's something that we take to heart. A lot of companies lose that along the way, especially as they grow bigger. It's usually a nice mantra to say that yes, we really value our customers, and I've seen and experienced companies that say that as a statement which is almost meaningless, because if you were to ask the real decision makers, when was the last time you sat down with one of your customers on a call and asked them about their experience? I'll tell you no, but I've got people for that. Well, that's in our view, we think that staying in touch with your customers is extremely important, because they're who you're building it for. And they also, in fact, the best part of where we've gotten to right now is that we have been speaking to these customers over and over, and they help us modify the product. They help us in that ideation process, and they tell you, no, what if you changed it so that it could do the following? And we're like, wow, okay, we hadn't thought of that. And we have a conversation and ask them, okay, if you were allowed to, how would you create it? And they literally will tell you what to build for them. And once you check with other potential customers, they'll tell you, yeah, exactly, that's exactly what I would have wanted. And that happens because as the founders of a business, once you have a view, you have a product that you want to build, you can easily get blinded and say that this is it, this is what we're going to do, and you move, and you find yourself forgetting who you're doing it for. So one of the things that we try to do a lot between Brian, myself, and Daniel is to speak to a lot of people. And we always ask guys, let us know if you've got friends, families abroad. We want to talk to them and just ask them what they think of this, whether this solves all the problems or whether there's more that we haven't seen, because that's when you're able to then build something or create something which is valuable to your potential customers. And then that comes back. That's the best thing. If you build something that's good for your customers, they will pay you. And it then spirals and becomes a great thing for everyone involved.
Very well put, Ali. Very, very well put. I think that's actually, sorry guys, we'll take your questions at the very end, but I'm following on all the questions, I'm taking them down. I'll just highlight on Victor says, cash is king. We agree, but the response to that is, customer is the cow to be milked for cash. So feed your cow. That is really true. I mean, we have tried to build things without, what can I say? With that perfection mentality where you already have that form of tunnel vision, you know the end, you have that very good product in your mind. But when you go to market, no one wants it. No one is even realizing that it's a product you're trying to sell to them. In fact, they're asking, why do I need to listen to you right now? Why do I need to pay attention? And it's important that that whole process of understanding first what your customers' needs are, and if there's an opportunity to solve that problem. And kind of, I'll say entrepreneurship also involves a lot of vision and a lot of idea building, because you have to really build on something that it's maybe known, but not a lot of people know about it, but it's an actual problem that needs to be solved by a lot of customers. So we did talk about how business is different between in Africa and in the West. And right now, what is changing, especially in Africa, is that a lot of businesses are being built for the many problems we have. Like this, what Tulix App, for example, is one of the problems we have here in Africa specifically. If you talk to someone who is natively to the American society, they actually cannot resonate with Tulix App. They really, really have no idea what the purpose of the business is, because in their minds, they have credit cards, they have bank accounts that work all the time, they don't have M-Pesa. So for them, the problem is not there to be solved. But when you talk to now the Africans who live there and they want to send money back home, when you ask them, the first thing they say, where have you been? We have been trying to find out how to solve this menace, because we have lost homes, we've lost investments, we've lost even money for healthcare. So it's really important that you put your customer at the very top of the list when figuring out which business to solve. And maybe just to build onto that, the value of time. I mean, in a business, I don't even think money is the biggest resource you have. I think it is time, because however you use your time really matters. Because if you're going to waste time jumping on, say, Facebook at 9 a.m. in the morning when you should be answering a customer's calls or a customer's request. That is time you've lost. If you're going to decide, oh, I won't put in a full week of time in my business, rather I'll just spend a little bit of time to do it, to laze around in the house, it's very different because you're the one paying yourself. Like I'd said, you are the business, and it is important to really, really, really guard that one resource, because you'll never be able to replace it or refill it. And you will always tell when you're spending enough time for your business and when you're not. It's clear as day. You can't confuse it with anything else. And yeah, to put that into perspective, I have seen when we started building the business initially, because we wanted to spend time to get to know each other, that has now really paid off now when I don't need to guess what Ali's thinking or what he's trying to allude to. In fact, I'll always maybe will finish his sentence early. Oh yeah, you're trying to solve this problem, man. So that time that you put in must be equal to some positive result at the end of the day for your entrepreneur journey or whatever business you're into or whatever problem you're trying to solve. I think that's been the case for us, Alistair, if I'm not wrong.
Completely right. I mean, again, a lot of the statements that I would hear in the past are really resonating now on this journey. When starting your own startup, your own small business, you realize that time is literally money, because every minute we spend is a minute closer to either of two outcomes. Either we run out of money as a business and we shut down, or we are a step closer to achieving our vision and our goal. So choosing how and where to spend our time is extremely important, and it's one thing that I would urge anyone who's thinking of getting into entrepreneurship, or I think I noted somebody asking about a balance between work and a side hustle. In fact, even in that scenario, it's even more profound, because when you have a work day and you still want to also have another business on the side, you realize that the time that you commit to something is directly related to the kind of result that you're going to get. So if you're going to spend, let's say, 8-9 hours on your main job, an hour in commute, and then some time in your side hustle, what I can say is that yes, it is done, and people are successful with that. It's just that it will not necessarily grow as quickly as if you were spending your entire day on it, you see. So time is money, literally, especially when you're in entrepreneurship. That's what I'll add to Brian's comment.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alistair. I'm seeing we are almost running out of time, so maybe I can touch on one more thing I think has paid off in terms of joining or switching from full-time employment to full-time entrepreneurship. And I think it's even a mantra for life. You have to enjoy what you're doing all the time. You have to always strive to be happy in this challenge you're trying to get yourself to solve, and in this business you're getting yourself to build. It has to be something that you draw joy from your heart, because you find that when you do the copy paste model, you find that when you start a business and your business is not driven by a passion you have from within, but it's driven by a need to imitate or emulate something you saw but didn't resonate with, that business will really struggle to be maybe extraordinary, to be unique, or to just stand out to the customer you think you're attracting. So if you enjoy what you're doing, people can see it from your actions. They can tell that you're actually happy building your business. They can tell that you're a business they'd like to buy from. They can tell that they are a customer that you appreciate. So just to keep it clean and just to keep it simple, be happy, enjoy what you're doing if you're going to start an entrepreneurship journey. And let me not lie, there are more low days than good days, but the good days pay off. Like the good days they are ones to remember. It's not the same as employment. In employment, there's some good days and then there's some bad days. Then there's some good days, some okay days. But in entrepreneurship, it's 1 and 0. There's no in middle ground. So just be happy, enjoy what you're doing. It will really, really, really be worth it. Ali, you can before you jump on the Q&As.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as they say, I mean, if there's a saying that goes, if you do what you love, you will never work another day in your life. You see, so one of the things that I've found a lot of joy in is the eagerness to wake up in the morning to go and build Tulix. You know, it's again, it's very easy for that to wane when you've been employed for a long time. Where again, it's the same thing every day, and even as you ascend in your rank or move firms, etc., that excitement, to be honest, it can easily fade away, especially if you're not necessarily in the profession or in the specific role that you wish to play. Then it becomes a lot harder. One of the things that I really enjoy about what we're doing here is that, as difficult as it is, in fact, it's a problem that a couple of people have told us, wow, that's a hard thing to solve in terms of the whole bigger picture of what we're trying to do. But even with that difficulty, it's actually exciting. You know, it's something that you get up saying, I need to run. I want to go and do this. And you're doing it with people that you enjoy doing it with. So that alone keeps you really going when you're starting a new venture. And I must say it's been a big part of getting us this far. And I feel like it's in fact our most exciting days are way ahead of us. So to anyone out there who's considering entrepreneurship or a venture or a side gig, make sure it is something that you actually enjoy. Don't do it because the numbers look great, because other people are doing it, because it's easy. No. I think it must start with it being something that you truly believe in, you're truly passionate about, you truly enjoy. And then the rest will fall into place. The rest will literally fall into place, I think. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Alistair. That is very amazing. So I think if it's okay, we can jump into the questions. What do you think?
Yeah. There's a lot on the chat.
Yep.
Yeah. So just before we go to the Q&A, as people are just absorbing what they've heard, I'd like to ask AG Joe from Kampala Metro. He just has one announcement, and then for the Q&A, I'd request our President-elect Wilson to mediate them. So, Roshiri and Joe.
Thank you very much, President Sami, Brian, and Guto. It's a good presentation. Sorry, I'm interrupting it as we get into the Q&A. President Sami, to the members of the Rotary Club of Madaraka and to your visiting Rotarians as well. On the 23rd of April, Africa will be celebrating 100 years of Rotary. The first club having started in Johannesburg, South Africa, 100 years ago. And as you've always known, Rotary has been in the focus of building peace since 1917. It's always been our focus in many of these areas. So peace building and community building has always been one of those things. So on the 23rd of this month, which is a couple of days, which will be on Friday, we are holding what we call the Africa Peace Concert, and it will be broadcast virtually to everybody around the world. And so the idea really is to raise $12 million US for the only Africa Peace Center which we have at Makerere University. The other 6 peace centers around the world are Australia, Thailand, and a couple of other places. So we are looking to sponsor 40 Peace Fellows over the period that the Peace Center will be here, and we're looking for $12 million US. So the reason I think President Sami has given me this opportunity is to ask you to contribute $50 to the Peace Concert. Please come and join us. I've shared a copy of the link where you can pay, and then we'll send you an invitation to your ticket to the e-concert, rather to the virtual concert that will happen on Friday. Thank you very much, President Sami.
Thank you. Just a request, rotators and rotaractors, please drop the name of your club in the box so that we can recognize you at the end. So over to you, P.E. Wilson Kamau, for the Q&A.
Okay. Maybe we can just start as we wait for Wilson.
Yeah, sure.
I could take the first one around how to choose a co-founder. That one, because that one is quite straightforward at the Antler program. The whole point of that program is to bring people from diverse backgrounds into a setting where they can exchange ideas and tackle all sorts of theoretical problems initially, and see who they like working with, who they gel with, and through that you start to find who you prefer working with in that setting. So at least with the Antler program, it's kind of intentional that when you're going into that program, you're going with the intention of meeting a potential co-founder. What I would say in theory about co-founders, or even just outside the Antler program, is I think it's important to find someone who's got a different skill set than yourself, first of all. And then the second thing is, of course, a person who, or people who you enjoy working with, because you're going to be, well, for lack of a better way to say it, you're going to almost be married to these people, just by virtue of the amount of time that you're going to spend together. So it's important to enjoy each other's company, and then also make sure that your skill sets are not exactly the same. I mean, if I was to be put with 4 people where I have got the exact same skill set, then we will not be able to think as broadly as you can when you've got people with very different views. So that would be my response to that question. That was from Victor Kenneth, yeah.
Perfect. Maybe I can just jump onto the next question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd ask Njoki Ndumu. She
Perfect.
has her hand raised. Njoki?
Thank you, President Malaki. Thanks, Ali and Brian, for your presentation. What I've taken home is what you've talked about: fall in love with the problem and not the solution. So I know it speaks a lot to a lot of customer solutions that we try offering, which are not necessarily, we are not looking at the problem, but we are more obsessed with the solution. So that's a key take home for me. So my question is, I've noted in your presentation, you've mentioned a lot of the human-centered approach and the design thinking. So I was just interested to find out, as you come up with customer solutions, what has been the shortest time you've taken from coming up with a problem, rather identifying a problem, ideating, prototyping, the customer journey all the way to solution? What's been the shortest time that you've taken for that?
That's a great question, Joki. Ali, want me to take that?
Yeah, sure, please do.
Perfect. Thank you. Joki, thanks. You've actually touched on a lot of principles we've applied to our problem-solving process, because maybe I should actually just start with the reason why we used the Antler program or joined the Antler program as an entrepreneurship start point is because those principles are ingrained. So they designed the program to bring together people who are passionate about entrepreneurship and then apply the design thinking process to kind of help you understand how to validate ideas first, how to speak to your customers second, and then how to make sure that you're building a product that they'll actually use. So just answering your whole question in one big chunk is that we spent maybe by the time I met Alistair, or by the time we met during the program, the entire program lasts about 12 weeks. But from the time we met, we were maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the program, and we spent the better part of 2 to 3 weeks getting to know each other and also getting to discuss ideas around this line of business, fintech, financing, money moving in and out of different borders and in different regions, until we finally found a problem that was worth solving. Because the other thing with finding problems is that you also have to have some knowledge about that problem, and you also have to be complementary to each other in order to solve the problem. So in total, maybe the Antler program also accelerated how fast we were able to do this, because in total, I can say we spent at most 6 weeks between identifying what problem we wanted, speaking to our customers, formulating several ideas and solutions and how they'd work, and even identifying what technology is available to build Tulix app in itself. And also speaking on that, maybe our entrepreneurship journey is not very, what can I say, standardized, because we are not trying to start a very easy business. One thing that our business entails is that it's purely software. So you won't see us opening up a building and having things run through it, or opening up a bank and branding it Tulix. Everything we're doing is completely based on the internet. So a lot of the work we are doing is involved in building trust directly into our product and building relationships so that people actually know who they're dealing with and not just a link on the website. We all know how many times this has become a problem. So all those components that you've talked about, Njoki, are building into how we are building Tulix App. And to be very specific, it took us maybe 6 weeks to get the problem identified, but it's going to take us a lifetime to solve it. So we haven't really gotten to the end. We have barely scratched the surface in terms of Tulix. So it's a learning and continuous process in itself. I hope that clears it.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. Maybe on that note, I can touch on there's a question I'd seen that was quite interesting. How do you guys get to balance your personal life and work? Taking note that startups are very intensive, and with working remotely, the work hour separation has grayed out. That's a unique problem. Alistair and myself are both family men. We have kids. We have lives that are outside the office. So one of the first things we did early in the program, or even early in our relationship and getting to know each other, was that with Daniel, who is fully remote because of the tech itself just requires him to have a very different environment, Ali and myself found that it was very easy for us to dedicate a full work day, and all COVID protocols observed, that is, and have that kind of process of work is the main part of what we need to do together happens during a session that me and him are physically present or working remotely. But when it gets to the evening, we also have that balance where we know what is important. We know what needs to be dealt with the next day. We know how to manage our time in a way that it doesn't affect the other badly, but also doesn't lead to bigger things being delayed or things not being executed on time. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Yeah. I mean, well put. The next question was from Phyllis. What would be the difference if you did your business as a side hustle as opposed to committing full-time? Phyllis, I hope I addressed that in my comment earlier regarding just the rate of progress when you're part-time versus full-time. So it has its pros and cons. It's just that you'll get out the amount of time that you put in. That's the thing. So to be honest, if you're starting a side hustle, it would have to be something that is not time intensive. That's what I would suggest. Or if it is, then you would have to be working with other people some of which are fully committed to the business.
Actually, I can add to that, Ali. There's a second part of that question that says, in terms of ideation and general progress, that part actually caught me, because one of the things that Tulix App was developed based on was that I was relying on Ali's experience in the financial markets, because he really knew how the money moves and what happens. But at the same time, we had this ingrained problem in us. So it was a problem we had tried to solve in our own way by running these errands, by doing all these activities for our friends and family abroad. But at the back of our heads, we didn't realize we were prototyping and ideating on a solution much later in our lives. So maybe one good thing is, if you're trying to think of whether you should quit your job now, or the best way is that maybe look in and try and find out, is there anything you're currently doing that's sort of a solution or a problem you're solving for someone that you enjoy? And if you're able to enjoy it, is there a way you can maximize what you're doing or scale it to a level where it is profitable for you to spend less time at work, or even just focus on it full time? Because startups are very, very time consuming. It's almost impossible to do it part time and still keep a job 9 to 5. You will find one of the two will really suffer. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris Munyasia asked, how about comparing business in the East as opposed to the West? If you could clarify on the chat or unmute, just so that we could, I didn't completely understand the question.
No, I found it was interesting when Maria was talking about companies or business opportunities in the West, which is what a lot of imports in Africa have. In terms of how they solve problems, a lot of the infrastructure already exists. Whereas in the East, if you're looking at China as an example, or India, they tend to be building things from scratch, just like Africa is. I guess it's just more of trying to understand why the comparison to the West.
I think I get where you raised that, Chris. Thanks for clarifying. I think my reference to the West was in trying to explain how, if you try to build Tulix as a business on that side, it wouldn't really resonate with the audience on that. But funny thing you mentioned that we actually got our validation and a lot of the ideas that Tulix App is built on from the East. There is the same problem we are solving is very prominent in Southeast Asia. It's very prominent in India. And you find that some of the technologies that they built from scratch, e.g., they also have their mobile money. They also have products that are very, very unique to them. We decided that that's the way we would build Tulix App, because our app is also relying on technology that is only present in East Africa and actually sub-Saharan Africa. So yes, we are comparing our business with the East, but in reference to the question I was posing was in trying to show how the two markets are so different from each other. And that's an advantage where we can build solutions that are very specific to us. I hope that clears up your comparison.
No, it definitely does. Thank you. And I was just hoping Tulix will also be exported to the West. There's a lot more diaspora in the West as well.
Exactly. We plan on going global. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's actually all the questions. We've gotten a lot of positive comments. Oh, there's one more from Joel. How do you fund the company and what are the priority areas? Joel, when you ask about priority areas, are you asking about where you spend the money once you've funded it?
Yes, what I meant as a startup, there are areas that you'd want to fund. Do you sit down and say, this month we will fund maybe our developer space, next month are we going to fund equipment, or the other month are we going to fund marketing? Because I know it's a limited budget at the beginning, and not very many people are too keen to put their funds in a company that is just growing. So what's the balance, and how do you decide this is our priority area?
Okay. I mean, that's the challenge of all startups. Very limited resources, especially money, and a lot that needs to be done. So I think, at least for us this far, it's literally been, initially you sit down and see how much do we have in entirety, and you try to figure out how long can this last us before the business itself can sustain it. The business can sustain itself. And that's literally the balance that then helps you determine what you can spend on. Of course, if you're developing a product, then majority of your resources would go into that becoming a reality. So then you can start to generate revenue as a business to sustain the other elements of the business. But as you rightly put it, marketing is a very important aspect of any business to consumer type of business. And Brian would know that from his experience in marketing, how much goes into marketing spend. So for us, it's almost where we just sit down and think through what do the next 3 months look like, and what is the most efficient way to use the little that we have. There also comes a time where you have to start thinking about where you're going to raise more money over and above, of course, the revenues, because it takes quite some time before a business's revenues are enough to sustain all its operations. Then you also want to develop your product further. You want it to be more visible. You want to get into possibly new markets. So I wouldn't say that there is an exact science to it, at least not this far for us. It's more of just trying to maximize on what you have and sweat it for what it can do, until you can reach a point where your revenues are able to cover your business expenses, or you're able to raise additional money from people who believe in the problem that you're trying to solve. Is there anything to add there, Brian, or have I covered that?
Oh, you've touched it beautifully. I mean, one of the key things a startup teaches you is prioritization, and there are things that you'll find you must put away, or you must put money away to solve. But then there are also things that you kind of identify and realize, if I just have this other month to come, or if I just put away some money for the next month, that thing can wait. So balancing is a key act in everything that we're doing right now. And some of the differences between employment and entrepreneurship is you can't just go walk to the accountant and tell them I need money for XYZ. You are the accountant. So you find that a lot of the things you need have to be prioritized, and they have to come from a point of urgency, so to speak, because as a startup, like Ali said, the resources are limited, and making the best use of them determines how far you go. It determines the runway, and it determines also how visible and attractive you are to people who potentially want to keep your business growing or to fund your business at the end of the day. It's what you call responsible management. So you can't just make decisions because you have the money. You have to be very accountable for the decisions that you take. I see a question from Victor Kenneth. I have a,
yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Victor Kenneth, his hand has been raised for quite some time, so that will be the final question.
Yes.
I mean, it's quite interactive,
Awesome.
and sorry, I have to be the spoiler. So Victor Kenneth, you can ask it.
Okay, thank you, President Sami. Thank you for sharing your stories on Tulix App. So I have two questions. The first one is, if you have a startup and you lack expertise in an area, is it advisable to bring in experts on the subject as co-founders? And what are the implications of that, or how hiring them? And sometimes you don't have the money as a startup, because I'm facing the same challenge in my startup. Then the other one is, how long is the accelerator program a full-time thing, or you do it part-time? Do they need you to be engaged the whole day?
Brian, you.
Oh yeah, I can answer. You can take the first one, then you can do the Antler one, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So, yeah, thanks for asking that, Victor. You actually
and
asked.
And also.
Yes, Sami.
Sorry, another question here. This is from Baraka. He's from all the way from Tanzania, so I'll just read it out. As African co-founders, what's the biggest challenge you've encountered so far? So those are the final questions.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll start with Victor's. So if you lack expertise, whether it's wise or not to bring in an expert as a co-founder, and how do you even actually manage that or afford that? So one of the first lessons that Antler teaches you is that pairing yourself with another co-founder allows you to limit how many people you have to bring on who don't know the problem you're solving, or who know the problem you're solving. So bringing in an expert might vary. There's some things that you really need an expert on, and there's some things that you can wait to until you can afford an expert, especially if that expert is not willing to put in their time at a reduced rate, at a reduced cost, just to help you solve that one problem. So I'll give you a very good example. Alistair has 15 years experience in financial markets. If you were to approach Alistair in his previous life from a financial perspective and ask him about information on what he's doing, I mean, the rate card would throw you off immediately, and you wouldn't even be able to have that engagement. I'm just just touching on that. And then, so bringing an expert, it might vary, but like we said, leverage your network. That's the most important resource we can say you can do to avoid getting into a fix where you don't know something. And then ask questions, because even using LinkedIn as a tool, go ahead on LinkedIn, type your question, ask, and someone will jump comment and give you feedback. Or even Twitter sometimes is very useful, where you don't know the answer to a problem and you want to get into it. And then touching on the question from Tanzania, that's also a good question. From an African perspective, what is the biggest challenge we have? Right now, I think access to talent is growingly becoming something that is being addressed. That was really the biggest challenge, where meeting the right people to help you scale a team was actually quite difficult, because most of the great people have been contracted by very big companies. The salaries are unaffordable. So getting them to join a scrappy business that's barely getting off the ground becomes very tedious. So access to teams that of very talented people might be a very considerable challenge, but that's where the Antler program, which Ali will talk about, comes in and helps you kind of solve that in a way.
Yeah, regarding the nature of that program, and I guess a couple of other accelerators, at least for Antler, they insist that you commit fully, just so that you get the most value out of the program. The length of the program is about 3 months, so 12 weeks or so. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that if you can, you'd get more value, because a lot of the sessions happen over the course of what I would call a workday. There are, I think there is one other accelerator that is currently doing this part-time. I think it's called the Founders Institute. You could look them up. So some do part-time, but Antler prefer that you do it full-time. From my experience, I can assure you that if I had still been working, I don't think I would have been able to, first of all, learn as much or get as much value out of the program if I had continued with my 8 to 5 and occasionally just signed in online or taken a couple of days off. So it depends on the structure of the accelerator. Yep, and I think those are all the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've really covered a lot, and there's been great feedback in the comment section. Thank you everyone for participating. So I shall call upon Rotaract Victor Kenneth to give the vote of thanks to our guest speakers this evening.
Okay, so thank you, President Sami, for the opportunity. This is a new thing for me, and I'm glad. So thank you, Brian, and okay, sorry. Yeah, thank you for teaching us on your experience on Tulix App, and we've really learned a lot, especially for me who am trying to create my startup. Yeah, it's like 2 months old, and leveraging on the experience of people like you who've gone before us is great, so that you might avoid these mistakes. You know, as a Rotaractor, most of the things here are new to us and maybe Greek. Maybe the experienced people like Sami and the Rotarians around may know and relate. So some of us don't know these things, and it's a pleasure to learn from you. And I'm glad, and thank you for everything, for answering our questions. And you really personalize the answers and put in your heart out to it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. It's our pleasure as well.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So for the next, thank you everyone. For the next part of the meeting, I shall invite our Sergeant at Arms. This is for the day, Joel, to collect from us. Joel.
Well, thank you, Malaki, for the ambush. And today I can see we are full house. Clearly, the threats of being blocked on the road have worked. Watu wameingia nyumbani. waende wakapiga makelele kwa Twitter. For all our guests, Sergeant at Arms sort of brings a bit of discipline to the proceedings and also helps raise money for our different causes. And therefore, I'm going to start. Malaki, please put up the pay bill number. So being a Monday and majority of us being members of Rotary, we adhere to the 4-way test. So kama huna pin yako, tafadhali tuma pesa kwa hiyo number. Second offense, latecomers. Also, please do us the honors. And as they're doing that, we'll go to Happy Dollar, Sad Dollar section. Happy Dollar is a dollar for anything that made your day. And Sad Dollar is a dollar for anything that brought you grief during the week, maybe Saturday, or yeah. Then we also have foundation dollars. If you have any foundation dollars, send them to foundation director, or you can still use the bank and send them to the foundation director. So shall we start with the happy dollars, sad dollars?
Joel, I think I'll start. I have 3 happy dollars. 2 actually for Brian and Ali. That was a quite thought-provoking talk, and I can see you guys are going places. Thank you so much for that. And the $3 is actually for being on our Rotary Madaraka meeting. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go next. I'll give my happy dollar to Brian and Ali. Thank you so much for that talk. I don't know for some reason why the pay bill is not going through, but as soon as that is available, I'll send through my happy dollars for today's talk.
I'll update your iOS.
It's updated. Kama ni pesa imejaa.
Njoki, I think due to the fact I cannot fine Malaki for interrupting my session, we shall pay a fine on his behalf. We didn't need to know type of phone you're using. Thank you. And I can't find Malaki since he's my president. But from June, or from July, I've written them down.
Okay, fine, well noted.
Okay, we have a few more minutes. Anybody wants to send through their happy dollar, sad dollar fines, please do. Well, okay, Sammy. Yeah, you can.
Thank you. So
proceed.
I have a couple of happy dollars. So I'll start with a narrative. Last year around January, I was hanging out with Alistair. I won't say where, but he mentioned that come April this year, he'll have left his place of work to start out to be an entrepreneur. And he needed a challenge in case he doesn't achieve it, that he will have to do whatever I say. I chose for him a couple of courses, including an MA in sociology, an MBA, and a psychology second degree. But true to his word, he was able to jump that ship, and I now owe him. I don't know what I owe him, but I know I owe him something. So congratulations, Alistair. Congratulations, Brian, for this. Really excited. This is a problem that many people resonate with. Like you said, you're sending money to build a house, you come back, you find there's nothing. It's something that I think all of us can attest. We've seen it happening to our relatives or our friends. So thank you for being here with us. My other happy dollar is to the great attendance. Thank you everyone for being here. It's Monday as well. It's a great day. And yeah, looking forward to the rest of the week. So happy week, everyone. And thank you for being here.
Thank you once again, Sami, to you and the entire audience. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so there being no other, there's an essay that has just been sent in. Please, if you're having challenges with the pay bill, use the account number that's Rotary MCAF. That's the one that usually seems to work compared to the long number that they give. The alias works better.
But that was also having challenges.
Sorry? Oh,
that was also having challenges.
Okay. I'll request our treasurer just to give a number in the message box so that we can reach out. Okay. There's a happy dollar from Paul Kiragu from Embu. These are 3 happy dollars. He's appreciated the talk. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Rotarian Joel, for stepping in as a SA. Thank you for stepping in as our SAA. So now we shall have the final toast, and thank you everyone for being patient with us. It's been quite interactive. So for the final toast, again, you can charge your glasses or hand over heart to the Rotaract clubs of Nairobi Parklands, UN Afia, RCNC, Imani, to the Rotary clubs of Arusha Clock Tower, Kampala Metropolitan, Langata, Karen, Embu, Nairobi South. This is the Rotary Club of Nairobi Madaraka. I give you Rotary and Rotaract the world over. Rotary and Rotaract the world over.
Rotaract the world over.
Rotaract the world over.
Thank you everyone.